Hello, and welcome to the Picture Show with Austin and Phil Rude. I am Phil Rude. I'm the dad.
I'm Austin Rude. I'm the son. Every week, we watch a movie, we get on a microphone, we sit on top of a microphone.
On top of a microphone.
And then we just talk.
Like it's a giant or a tiny chair.
Yeah.
Or it's a giant microphone.
It didn't come with instructions, so we're just trying our best.
Great for picking up farts and, stomach rumbling, so.
That's right.
Yes, that is what we do here. We sit on microphones and we talk about movies.
That's the whole show.
Sometimes I sit on a microphone while I watch the movie. And then all I gotta do is just start talking.
That's insane.
It's economical.
Okay. Spend your time how you want to spend your time.
I like to be efficient. And,
right.
I get a lot more done that way. But before we get into our movie for this week, what have we been up to? What else have we been watching? What have you been putting your eyeballs to?
I've been consuming my regular Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, okay.
This time it's classic Doctor Who. I've toyed with the idea of reviewing the whole show for a while now.
Like building a Twitter account that maybe reviews old Who? Maybe? Would you ever consider doing something like that?
It seems really out there, but
I'm sorry to throw a wild idea at you that you hadn't considered.
I've been considering recording myself. Bringing it to the next level.
Real talk, behind the scenes here.
Okay.
How many times have I suggested you do some short essays and we just put them on the feed?
Well, that is the thing, yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, I do want it to be short because, I can go on for 40 minutes and no one wants to listen to that. So, I want to keep it to 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, the Doctor Who fandom really isn't into
longevity,
analytical breakdowns of their favorite show or anything. I'm just gonna throw this out there. I apologize for interrupting you. If you are listening to this and you would like to hear Austin give any length of, I'm not going to put a time on it, but just if this is something you would be interested in hearing, reach out to us, reach out to Austin, let him know, because I think this is something people would listen to. There's more Whovians out there than we realize, and I'm sure we overlap with some of them who would like to hear your thoughts on Doctor Who, both the new one, the girl, and the classic Doctor Who.
One girl, yes.
Nurse Who. We all know what the real subtext is.
All right, Dad. Before people think you're serious and start attacking,
I like to think
show.
our audience knows us a little better than that. But I think there's an audience for it, and I know that you have had thoughts about Doctor Who since you were 10 years old. And you have just spat them out ad nauseum. All you have to do is just put a microphone in front of your face and throw it out there. I think people would be interested to hear what you have to say.
Do you hear this, guys? This is him trying to get me to have a different outlet so that he doesn't have to listen to it anymore.
That is not what I'm doing.
I know very well. But it is one of those things that I've been toying with.
Which Doctor have you been watching this past week?
The Sixth Doctor.
Who is that?
That's Colin Baker.
Kaepernick?
No.
He's the doctor who took a knee.
Takes a knee.
And was
but he is the doctor that everyone hates.
Weird.
Because he's
what is it
very...
about Collins?
I don't know, but his era was very progressive. It had a lot of bold stances.
Colin Kaepernick. This is. I'm seeing a lot of parallels here, just on the surface.
And they changed up the formula of the show a lot.
And despite being unpopular, it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Is it
correct.
the same? Okay.
I don't know. There's more of a focus on science, which in a science fiction show you think would be obvious, but they tend to stray from it.
Doctor Who's pretty magic.
That's
more
right,
than science. Yeah. I mean, honestly.
For a show that's all about fighting Nazis, robot Nazis called Daleks. I mean, like, it
Sure.
really is. You'd think it would be more progressive, or the fan base, but, you know, when it gets too overt, or just for whatever reason, they really hate the Sixth Doctor. He was fired from the show, and then the 13th Doctor's era, they also don't like, for
It's
a
like
multitude of
anti-progressive
reasons.
people who are Trekkies.
That's it.
It's like,
That
don't
is
you
it.
don't you understand like how progressive Star Trek politically and socially was? Like historically, like you don't understand what this show is about. If this is, you know, like, yeah,
It's wild to me, but yeah, I'm rediscovering what makes that show good, and also just learning more about like past TV, and because I've gone back and watched past Doctor Who before and been like, well, this is weird, and I'm just
Right.
realizing it's a different format, it's a different TV language, and
What,
I'm learning to appreciate that.
What time period is the Sixth Doctor from?
He's the early 80s, I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
Or late 80s.
He's
in the 80s.
A lot of cocaine in the Sixth Doctor.
He's always got a line of white on his coat.
He's always got. You missed a little. And yeah. Okay. So 80s science fiction. I'm trying to line that up with
It
like
probably lines up with Star Trek Next Generation.
not quite. That was like later 80s, but this would be more like Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica, original Battlestar Galactica. Like
Yeah.
early, that's like late 70s, maybe into early 80s.
And I think
So yeah, that's kind of a different vibe. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I think the show was also, all those new shows were cropping up, and this is the show in its like 25th season.
Right.
And it's trying to keep up, but it's not really. It's also trying to maintain what it was. And so I feel like looking back on it, I'm like, I can appreciate this, but I think it was hated at the time because the audience wasn't there for it, or whatnot.
Yeah, that's trying to maintain. I mean, it just sounds so radically different. Where when I think about Buck Rogers and BSG in that time period, these were things that were like directly influenced by Star Wars, which was brand new at the time. Like,
Yeah.
so you have like a lot of like Star Wars knockoff stuff in the States, and then some stuff like what Trek was doing around that time. You saw like Trek 3 came out in the 80s, in like early 82, 83. And that becomes much more like action oriented. So like science fiction became more of like an action genre.
Yeah.
So Doctor Who would be doing something completely different from that. And maybe it just wasn't in the what every sci-fi fan's taste was kind of being influenced by at that time.
I'm sure
I don't
there's
know.
a lot of factors.
I'm just
at
yeah.
play, but
I'm just guessing because I haven't seen that Doctor, but you know, I'm just trying to compare it to what
else
sci-fi
was on?
was going on in the mainstream in the States at the time too. Because, you know.
Have you also been watching a show with a 60-year-old history, or what have you been up to?
I did start rewatching Mad Men this week.
Okay.
On IMDb TV. I'll talk about that more as I get further into it, but I am enjoying. I love that show.
Is this a full rewatch?
Yeah, I just started. I'm just casually, you know, like it's familiar. I know that I love the show and I love the characters, but it's a kind of unfiltered look at it starts in 1960. And it's really I like that it's showcasing that time period without being preachy about it. It just shows you what it was and lets you come to the conclusion that everything was ridiculous.
Yeah. I've always seen it as critical of that era, but not like...
It's not preachy.
No.
Yeah. But I did watch something else from that time period just yesterday, and I watched last year's version of West Side Story.
Really?
I did. I saw it on HBO, and
you know it's a musical, right?
I do, and this is where I'm going to just flat out say I don't know how to judge if a musical is good or not, because I have a hard time with just the logic of the rules of a musical. It's its own reality.
That's fair. It's almost separate to movies.
It is. It's such a different thing. I don't know how to judge it, but I did enjoy it. I'm like, oh my god, this thing is 2.5 hours. Flew by. Flew by. And I liked the songs. I knew a lot of the songs. I have seen the original one when I was in like elementary school or junior high school, somewhere in that era. We watched it in a music class.
This one the original you watched this week?
No, I watched the Steven Spielberg remake.
Oh, okay.
The
new one.
The new one, yeah. Which you are in, by the way. There's a character.
Say what?
There is a character in there where I did a double take when he came on screen. I'm like, oh my god, it's Austin.
I am. I'm excited to hear which character you're talking about.
You are. I think his name is Baby Johnny. He's like the youngest gang member in the Jets, and
is that the guy who gets the nail?
He gets a nail through his ear.
Oh my god!
He comes on screen and he is tall but not too tall and just very skinny, and he's wearing a striped t-shirt with like a jacket over it, and he has your haircut. He has your 100% build, and when he came on screen, I'm like, what is that Austin? I was like, oh
did I not tell you I was in that movie?
I was like, how did he keep this a secret from me? But
no, that's funny though. I didn't
really
catch
funny.
that. But then again, sometimes you look at yourself and you don't recognize yourself.
But yeah, I know this movie has caught some hate from some people for various reasons. I didn't see any of that. I saw a very enjoyable musical that had a very tragic story to it. I know it's Romeo and Juliet. I know all of these sad things are going to be tied up in it. But I really got into it, and I'm not a musical person, but I really enjoyed watching that.
I had a fun time when I watched it in the theater, but I left with a very mixed take on it. Like, I really liked some things, really didn't like other things.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ones that I want to like rewatch and kind of see how it holds up.
I think it looks great.
Oh, it's stunning.
Like the sets and the whole look of the neighborhood and everything it's beautiful. I think they really did a great job production value.
There's a whole Twitter thread of Guillermo del Toro. He like tweeted.
Oh, he loved that movie.
He was like analyzing like the ballroom dancing scene and like all of that.
The gymnasium, the salt, where they have the big rumble where all the salt is. All the empty lots and broken down buildings when they're fighting over the gun and they're running through like that condemned building and over the holes of just everything about it. I'm just sort of like, it's a brilliant looking period set, and it also functions for these musical set pieces where they're dancing around all the stuff.
Yeah, they work it really well.
And I really all right. Not on mic, but texting me right now in the next room. Christy says, you say you're not a musical person. You also really appreciated Jesus Christ Superstar. I have been listening to Jesus Christ Superstar very recently because it's playing somewhere here, and we have a commercial, and that song comes on, and it just sets me up. Yes.
If someone wants to chime in from the other room,
someone is welcome to just open up the door and just say whatever she's thinking instead of texting me and interrupt. It's very distracting. But
our virtual heckler here.
I'm not traditionally a musical person. I like some songs from musicals. I'm finding more and more, and but I don't like seek out musicals, and I don't know how to judge them.
I get that though. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. There's certain musicals where I'm like, I really like you, but like, and I like all the songs in you, but 10 in a row, like, I don't know if I want to sit down and do the whole thing. Like, you got to dedicate an afternoon to it.
And there's always like a downer song in like every musical that you're like, oh my god, it just drags so much at this one. You know what I mean? Like, but
There's a
the good ones make up. The good ones make up for it. I liked. I love the America song when they're singing.
Yeah.
She wants to stay and he wants to go back to Puerto Rico.
It's all the pros and cons.
They're back and forth on it. It feels like you're watching people sing a marital spat as it goes through the street, and it's just so much fun. I really, surprisingly, I didn't even expect to like this movie that much, but I really, really did.
I'm glad you liked it, and maybe now I can be open to suggesting a musical.
I've never shot down you suggesting
you have
musicals.
not. You have not.
You are welcome to bring whatever movie you want to for the show. We watch all kinds of stuff, and a lot of stuff that I didn't particularly think I would like. That, we talked about this with Marriage Story, and Emma talked about, like, I didn't want to watch these movies, and then I was really glad that I did. So
that's part of the reason you do a movie podcast.
You kind of, not just to celebrate the things we know we like, this is part of what being a movie fan is to be open to watching all kinds of different things.
Yeah. Speaking of things that we watch.
Speaking of things we watch that are kind of outside of our norm.
Yeah.
This week, we watched the 1973 Japanese action movie, Lady Snowblood. This movie is about a young woman who is trained from birth to be an instrument of revenge, hunting and killing those who destroyed her family. Okay, get ready, because I'm going to try some Japanese names here. So this film stars Miko Kaji as Yuki, or Lady Snowblood, Ko Nishimura as Priest Dekai, Noboru Nakaya as Banzo, Yoshika Nakata as his daughter Kobu, and Toshio Kurosawa as Rayuri, who is the writer who kind of makes the manga about her.
Yeah.
And I did look him up, and I could not find anything that said that he was related to Akira Kurosawa, the famous Japanese director who made, like, Rashomon. He made what's the one we watched? Hidden Fortress.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just a common
name. It could be. It's like Smith in Japan. I don't know. This is directed by Toshiya Fujita. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. It's directed by Toshiya Fujita, with a screenplay by Norio Osada, and Miko Kaji, who plays Lady Snowblood, also sings the theme song, Shura no Hama, which means Flower of Carnage.
That is so awesome that she sang that song. I didn't
know that either till I looked everything up. And
what a talent.
Quentin Tarantino used that song in Kill Bill.
I've heard that song
which
before.
Which kind of kicked up her musical career. She all of a sudden was, like, charting. Because Kill Bill soundtrack is great, and it sold a lot of copies, it got a lot of listens, and it's sort of like 30 years later put her singing career back into, like, the zeitgeist.
Wow. And I've never seen Kill Bill, but I've heard that song, I'm sure, probably because of the movie. Like,
it's gotten kicked around. Somewhere. Yeah, it's but yeah. Just a disclaimer here. We are going to talk about Quentin Tarantino, because I can't talk about this movie without talking about Kill Bill, because this so clearly influenced Kill Bill.
I'm sure it did. I can't talk much on that.
You haven't seen it, right?
Yeah, I recognize, though, because first off, I really love this movie, and so I was going through Wikipedia, and I found, like, this is a very important movie. Like, it spawned sequels. It was remade by a different name. Yeah, just like 10 years later, there's
in Japan. It was like Japan, a Japanese movie again.
It's like the same exact plot. They've just changed the names, and it's based off the manga, which this whole story is based on. Yeah,
you told me that after, I think you had been, like, researching it right after we watched it, and I didn't know it was from a manga, and it makes me want to, like, go find that. It's sort of like at the same, what we're going through now with comic book adaptations over the last 20 years, it seems like the 70s were full of things like that in Japan, where they were adapting things like Lone Wolf and Cub and Lady Snowblood. They were taking these manga titles that were known,
Yeah.
especially in Japan, and they were making movies of them. And I think that's really interesting to see, like,
and similar to how comics in America happened, like manga was so cheaply produced then and still is,
yeah.
and like that is why it spread so much. And so like this was an insanely popular manga before the movie was made, which basically meant that this movie was set up to be a success.
And it's sort of like a meta thing in the movie when the guy makes the manga of Lady Snowblood.
Right. The character in it is...
And that becomes a plot point in the movie, is now she's like a celebrity. So it's a really weird sort of like full circle kind of thing. Like the story becomes very famous.
It is, and I actually... I want to go and read the manga simply because I think this is a great story. I felt very emotionally invested to it, but also I feel like with all of the time jumps that are in this, like, I feel like it would play out more better as a TV series or a manga, which it originally was, and that makes a lot of sense.
Where it's broken into chapters.
Yeah, and you kind of get more room to breathe while she's targeting her victims or whatever, and, like, you get this whole world built, and you kind of get more of that.
And that's where... I think, because that's a very Tarantino thing, is the time jump too, like like non-linear stories. He's always done that. But with Kill Bill, I think what he did really well in that, because it's the same plot basically. It's this woman is she's an assassin. Now we're going to talk about a completely different movie. She's an assassin, and she is killed. She leaves her life as an assassin, and then the rest of her crew comes and hunts her down and leaves her for dead. But she comes back and she hunts them down one by one, trying to get to Bill, who's the leader.
Sure. So
that's the whole thing. And it has these flashbacks of her training montage with an old Japanese master, and they all lead up to like these sections of the movie. Each section is her finding one and killing them. And where he did that, he made it 2 volumes. He made it 2 movies. So it did give it, like what you're saying, more room to breathe. Like, this is a short movie. Lady Snowblood, an hour and a half, basically.
It is, and it feels longer.
And she hunts down, she has to hunt down like 4 people in that time. And it's just like, it is so compressed, plus the back and forths, it's a little bit jarring.
And there's even like cop-out kills, like where she's like, oh, this guy, she tracks him down for like a quarter of the movie, and then she's like, oh, he's already dead, and then later she has to find him and kill him again. So it's like an extra chapter that like...
But there's also other parts of it that are, I think, stretched out a little more. When she tracks down Bonzo, the
first guy,
the old man who's like sick and he's in bad with like gambling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And living like that was like really sort of stretched out, sort of the biggest emotional part of the movie, honestly. But then everything else is almost to make up for that. It feels like they condensed all the other sections down in order to fit that in, where it's just sort of like, you should have just kind of made the movie a little bit longer and gave it a little bit of room to breathe, because that middle part where she's hunting down Bonzo and she gets to know his daughter and stuff like that is like, that part is so interesting to me. It's like, for me, it's like the emotional center of the movie.
I think that's where I started getting connected with the movie, because like the first beginning of it is just all exposition. It's random time jumps, whatever. That's kind of where you feel this journey, and then the next kind of that second half of the middle is just a lot of ups and downs. And I feel like those are the rushed emotional beats. Can I say those words?
I think you'll get them there. But yeah, I think there weren't a lot of emotional beats in those other parts. It was like the woman that she was hunting down, just sort of shows up and is like, the confrontation is right there. And then, that's over. She finds her hanging there, which is the greatest transition in when her body's hanging there and they're just standing around it, and then like a curtain falls, like it's a play. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I thought that was the end of the movie.
And it's just like, okay, Act 2 is over. Now we're moving. It was somehow like, there's things that exist outside of this movie that are like, oh, it's not a movie anymore. It's a play. And now we're back to being a movie.
Right. Or it's a manga.
It's right. It's such an interesting presentation of this story because it steps away from being a movie sometimes.
But none of that is like...
I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's really, really cool.
None of it turns out to be jarring, which is strange.
Right. It all seems to sort of fit the bizarre logic of this movie.
And I feel like one of the elements that also adds to that is the intense, ridiculous gore.
Yes.
Like just blood spurting,
the blood
water.
fountains. Yeah. Also a Kill Bill thing.
I'm sure Quentin Tarantino in general, he has a lot of blood in his work.
But that was the thing when Kill Bill came out. Like, people were like parodying this and talking about how ridiculous it was. And then, I think since then, the 20 years since then, people have sort of found Lady Snowblood. I had never heard of this movie until a few years ago.
Yeah.
And people, I think, are slowly finding it and going, oh my God, the fountains of blood in Kill Bill makes so much sense now. Like, it's just a direct reference to this movie that he loves, and he wanted to pay tribute to this movie.
I'm sure it is, and I don't want to speak ill of people, but I feel like you're not good at understanding movies if you need to be like, oh, it's a reference to understand that this is a stylized form of, like, it's not trying to look realistic, the gore. Like,
right. I think it comes off as a stylistic choice, no matter if you know the reference or not. And that's so much of like what Tarantino does in general, is he just references other movies, and that's mostly for him.
Yeah. But
he works it in there to where if you don't get the reference, it doesn't matter.
It still works.
It still works in the style and the story he's telling. But I think there was a big awakening when it was Film Spotting SVU. It was a spin-off show of the NPR Film Spotting podcast.
Yeah.
But they were the first people I ever heard talk about this movie. And then I found it and I watched it. This was, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And it was one of those like sort of lightning bolt moments where you go, oh my God, this was a very influential film to people who saw it. To filmmakers who would take this forward. You can see the
connection.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, it's kind of like finding like old John Woo movies from Hong Kong, stuff like The Killer, and going, oh shit, I see how this influenced these other, going forward, how this influenced American action. The American action directors who saw the Hong Kong stuff and became like very influenced by it. The guy who does the gun kata stuff, it's like The Matrix. I can't remember his name, but the stylized gunplay and stuff like that. You can see the directors who saw Asian movies, Asian cinema, before anybody else was able to see it, had a way into that world.
Because I think that was kind of groundbreaking.
And for sure. Action. They were doing something completely different than the rest of the world. So it just is like, when you go back, and I think even by today's standards, Tarantino aside, this is a completely weird movie, even by today's standards.
Oh, for sure.
I think if an American studio made this movie exactly the same way, people would have their minds blown and be like, what is this? This this is a crazy movie because it's full of time jumps and weird logic and steps out of being a movie. And a character who says almost nothing through the whole like a main character who's just sort of like this silent machine, like a Terminator or something.
Are you talking about
Lady Snowblood? Yeah, she's almost a non-person.
She's very stoic, but I kind of think that's what the movie is about. Like,
yes.
The whole thing, they say it several times. I can't remember the term that they give her, but they're like, you are this.
The Asura?
The Asura, yes.
It's like a demon, like an avenging demon. Yeah.
Of revenge.
Right.
You are not a human being. Your life is meaningless, they tell her.
Right.
Your only goal is to kill these people, to the point where when one of them is already dead, she feels sad simply because she wasn't able to kill him.
This was my purpose.
Right. But when you think about it...
Two of them.
Yeah.
There were two of them that she was robbed of killing.
Yes. The first was a fake out,
right.
though. But, like, the whole point is to have these people dead. It doesn't matter how. Like, she's trying to see justice, but she kind of forgets what she's there for. Because she just sees herself as this instrument of revenge. And all that ultimately leads to is, spoiler alert, her own destruction.
Right. And because of another cycle of revenge.
Yeah, because she started a new person on the cycle of revenge, and it's never gonna end.
Which is Kill Bill also.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Not the ending. At the very beginning of Kill Bill, she kills somebody, and that person's daughter witnesses it. And there's talk of, if he makes Kill Bill 3, that's what it's going to be.
Of course.
This is the rumors of his 10th movie have been floating around for 20 years. But it's great, and also taken from this movie. I think it's a direct reference to this movie. And I think it's a great twist that plays on that sort of emotional middle section when she gets to know that woman.
Yeah, I think that's why that's so fleshed out.
Yeah.
Is it ends up coming around.
It's that, George Lucas talks about poetry, the rhyming of things that come back around.
Yeah. Oh, is that why the twin sons are at the end of this movie?
Yes, but this is it done in a very... And this was pre-Star Wars, which is, we know George Lucas is very influenced by samurai movies and stuff. So it is sort of like the same kind of rhyming thing of coming back around, but... this was clearly planned instead of made up over 3 movies until it finally he finally found the rhymes at the end.
This one was rhyming from the start.
Absolutely.
And actually, speaking of unplanned things, this movie got a sequel. And
yes,
I don't know what it's about, but I feel disappointed almost. Like, I don't know what there is left to tell. I like the ambiguous ending here of we don't know if Lady Snowblood is going to survive. I like this being the story. I kind of feel like a continuation. From the synopsis I read, it's...
Oh, you have it. Okay, good.
Her taking on someone's mission of love. This man wants revenge on his, dead bride or something. And so she sets out to infiltrate this crime unit, but it's not her story of revenge anymore, and I feel like that's just like, oh, we want her to be cool and kill more stuff.
It's a cash grab sequel, but...
So I do think I want to watch it to confirm that suspicion, but...
I am going to watch it, but I know what you're saying.
I like this as this.
Because this did have such a clear... statement about the pursuit of revenge, and even when they think they're all dead, when the woman is hanging, she's hung herself, or so they think, and then the curtain closes, and that should be the end, because that's all the that's
her mission complete.
The assailants, right? And she's with the guy, the writer, and he says something about like, can you have a normal life now? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, or is that even possible? And all of these flashbacks have shown that she, she could, like, it's impossible for her to have a normal life because she's almost not a person.
She's never had a normal
From
life.
the time she was born out of revenge and just trained from the time she was a little child to be a killing machine. So, I mean, it's like she wouldn't even know where to begin to have a regular, normal life. Which is, I think, just this great statement on, like, this is what revenge does to people. It consumes you and you lose your humanity. And to the point where she's not even avenging something that happened to her. She's avenging something that happened to her mother, who she never knew.
Right.
Which is like this, you know, these concepts of honor and things like that. But it's just been twisted and perverted to the point where it's sort of like, for your revenge, you're robbing your child of having a life. You're basically killing your own child to get revenge for you.
How awful is that?
When you break it down, it's a really clear kind of theme of this movie. Everything else is just dressing around that and a poetic way of telling.
Super cool dressing, but yeah,
for sure.
And also, like, the worst thing is she had the child specifically to carry out the revenge. This wasn't like the child was born and she was like, okay, you have to carry this out. She made this child happen. Like, she had a child for an awful reason. And just, like, it's such a cruel way to bring someone
She had sex
with
all the prison guards until she got pregnant. And she wanted a boy. And then she got a baby girl. I was like, oh, okay, the girl will do it then. And it's just like it's such a strange and specific, like, backstory, but it informs everything about the character going forward.
And in a way, that is something that people do, not like literally, but people do force their ideas onto their children, and they also.
What do you mean, son of mine who's on my podcast?
All right, and also,
I've robbed you of any sort of career that will make money. No, you have to carry on this podcast legacy.
Doomed to be a starving artist. I forgot what I was saying now.
You said people do that to their children, where they put. I think you were right. Were you saying something about, like? Are you talking about, like, legacies, like legacy careers and things like that, where it's like, oh, I'm a firefighter and all my sons are firefighters and all, you know, like, or career military families or things like that?
Yeah, and even, like, more abstract, just kind of in general pressures are put onto kids. Like, you need to have all A's or this or that. Like, and also just people, the whole revenge thing, like, let it go. I mean, what happened in this movie is horrific. I'm not like...
It's pretty terrible. Yeah.
But to create more damage with getting your justice, is it really justice? Right. It's kind of the question this is asking.
At what point are you doing more damage to your family than than what was originally inflicted on your family? You know what I mean? Like, it just becomes like this cyclical black hole that just eats everything. And I think that's the bigger point this movie is making. I'm talking about revenge. I mean, that's not the straight A's or you have to go to college thing. But I mean, there are people who get to a certain point in their adult life and realize, oh, I went to college and pursued this career and married this person and had these kids, and I didn't want any of these things. And now I'm stuck in the middle of this life that I'm dissatisfied with. Clearly, that's not murdering people and things like that. But that happens. That happens all the time.
Right. Like, and these stories are metaphors for bigger things.
For real world ideas, yeah.
I feel like that's right on the money. And I'm actually just now having a thought that might be completely bogus, but I'm going to go with it. Because I think the writer might be a foil to Lady Snowblood, because he comes from the perpetrator. He's the perpetrator's son.
Right.
And he is not going for revenge. He's doing the opposite of what his father wants, but it still leads to his demise. So maybe that's a message about how whether you follow the parents' path of get justice for me, or you stray away from it, you're still stuck in it.
That may be. There's something about legacy. Maybe it's a bigger point about just legacy in general. Like,
consuming.
It can consume you whether you want it to or not. So I hope you're born into a good one, kind of thing. But I think there's a lot to be said about a lot of things with regards to that and the bigger idea of like the passage of time. Because I'm going to go back to Bonzo, is when she catches up to him, he was this young gangster making money and killing people, and now he's a broken old man. It's at a point where when she finally catches up to him, I feel like I don't think it's saying this specifically, but I kind of get this idea of like, it doesn't matter if she kills him. He's dead essentially already. He's not a threat to anybody. He's just a shell of what he used to be. And she almost kills him just because that's her mission and she has to, because she's been programmed to. But she kind of understands, like, this is so unnecessary. Life has beaten this guy. He's nothing now. He's just a shell.
Yeah, I sense like disappointment.
Yeah.
When she's like, well, I guess I gotta. Almost like a pity.
Pity is a great word, because I think that is it. She takes pity on him. She feels bad for his daughter, and she's like, come stay in Tokyo with me if something happens.
Yeah.
And she's trying to be kind to her. But I get the sense that like she doesn't want to kill him because it's so pointless. But she has to.
She doesn't know another way.
Right. She knows that's what she was put in motion to do.
Yeah.
And it's a bizarre scene, because I did feel like I had only seen this once before, so I didn't remember a lot of the details. But I did get this idea of like, is she going to let him go? Is she just going to let him like go and die of old age?
I felt that too. I was unsure how that scene was going to play out.
She takes him to the beach and she explains who she is, and it's just sort of like, oh, she's going to do it. But it was sad. It was a sad kill. Yeah. I that's what I felt anyway. I didn't think there was like any victory. It was like hollow. You know what I mean?
Hollow is a good word for it.
She kind of just is like, yeah, okay, this one's done. I trained my whole life for this,
Right.
But I think that also is an interesting contrast to like the other two that were actually like murdering killers still, like very dangerous people. Like the older woman and that writer's father.
Right. I mean, the writer's father, he even got like, he's mixed up in like
he has like, a lot going on.
The military and opioids and all kinds of weird arms deals, and it kind of gets a little bit into like the influence that America had. Yeah,
the American military is at that masquerade ball.
Right.
And it's just sort of like, oh, wow, that's really kind of interesting.
Well, because America had a hand in getting people in Asia addicted to opioids.
Opium. Straight opium, yeah.
And so he also had a hand in that.
And they're trying to modernize Japan at that time, where the American military was coming over and like, hunting down like the last of the old clans and trying to, be a trading partner with Japan,
Yeah.
essentially.
I
Like colonization, more or less.
There's some symbolism where he falls from the balcony, finally dead, and he pulls
the
Japanese flag
down.
with him.
Right.
But in that same shot, and I'm sure it's deliberate, the American flag is right there next to Japan.
A 50-state American flag as well. There's
Oh, it wouldn't have been at that time, would it?
No, not even close.
That's funny.
There's a bunch of, I found it, I'm not going to be able to find it now, but there is a piece of trivia on here. Oh, here it is. This film is set in the 19th century. However, during the masquerade party, there are various modern-day flags on display, including but not limited to Pakistan, created in 1947, Australia, created in 1901, and the 50-star flag of the United States, introduced in 1960. And this would have been 1873, I think.
Okay. I didn't realize it was set that far back.
Oh, no, I guess it'd be about 1890s. It would be...
yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
She's born in 1873. That's what was the prison part. And so then, like, give or take 20 years later. But yeah, it's... but you're right. The symbolism is there. Like, it is the idea. And a really interesting idea, I think, to have him not just be like an opium smuggler. This would have been, I think, about the time that Japan stopped being a closed nation. And it would have opened up all this black market. Like, he's stealing, or he's selling guns.
Yeah, he's
a gun runner, and the opium trade is in full swing, and American colonization is basically taking place in Japan.
And when you think about it, I don't know much about the history here, but before that, the original crime that started everything was happening during the rebellion era, where the draft was kind of forcing people into the war, and then they had created a scam to get people out of the draft or something.
Yes, it was like they didn't have power to get people out of the draft, but they would, if they would say you could basically buy your way out of being drafted. And so they would take money, and then when people from the government showed up to draft the young men, they were the men in white, they would kill them. And that's what happened, was they mistook Lady Snowblood's mother's husband because he's wearing a white suit, for a government conscript, and murdered him and their entire family. And it's just sort of like, good Lord, overkilled that a little bit, but...
was very much, but again, like, he started there, and he worked his way up. Like, he was... The themes of corruption, I guess, are prevalent throughout.
These are people who are... these are criminals who are taking advantage of political and military situations in Japan, and it showed that he was still doing that, and 20 years later.
And specifically to take advantage of the poor people, the working class, who are already at a disadvantage.
Exploiting that, if this was happening today, he would just be a government contractor, and he would be sponsoring cable news channels. He'd be a war profiteer, and it would all be completely illegal. But that's neither here nor there when we're talking about this movie.
But still true.
It makes it no less true. Yeah, I don't... we're all over the place with this. But...
we are, but I have a point.
Please.
I forgot to mention... I wanted to talk about, like, the camera moves in this movie, because 90% of this movie is shown in, like, still frames, or like very slow moving arts.
A lot of slow pans,
And so what there are things that don't fit that, and they really jump out at you. And I think they're cool, like the intense zooms, like you were talking about her first kill on the beach, and it zooms in or zooms out like crazy
Right.
wide, crazy
Real
fast. They also have like real shaky cam. That's kind of shown in her introduction scene. Like where it shows a focus on a person, but like the camera is beyond shaky. It's like you can't even see what's going on.
Right.
And then they also have, again, the super still shots where there's no pan, no nothing. It's just like usually a really cool composition and it's just still.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like those are very integral to the film language of Japan at the time.
I think it's...
Or to this director, but I've seen them before in other Japanese films and media, so like I feel like there's a connection.
There's a lot of Japanese art and Asian art in general where it is a focus on like wide still shot. Like the subject of it could be a person, and a person in a forest, let's say. But just because the subject is there doesn't mean it's like big and in the middle of the frame. It can just be a person who's real small in the corner of this painting of a forest, and it's just like this almost style that's unique to like old Japanese art. You see it in Stan Sakai's comic Usagi Yojimbo, the samurai rabbit. You ever read that?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, there you'll see like a lot of establishing shots, and they're very reminiscent of Japanese art. Stan Sakai is a Japanese American, and a lot of that comic has to do with Japanese history, told through like samurai animals and things like that. But same kind of thing. I feel like that is a very Japanese composition thing to do. And to see it in film is really interesting because you're like, oh, it's not unique to painting.
Yeah,
like
it's in everything.
It's this very Japanese sort of way of framing things, even in a movie.
And I love it.
It's great.
It brings
yes.
calmness, and to like the zooms or the shaky cam, such intensity.
That's when they hammer it home.
The calmness.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know, there's kind of a zen to it where like it draws you in or shakes you up. Like you really feel connected to the movie.
Yeah, there's like a calmness to a lot of this movie, and then it's broken up with like just mad chaos. You know, there's a real back and forth to this. When action's going on, it's really going on. But then the rest of the time, it's just sort of like a lot of talking, a lot of standing around. You know, when they're framing people talking, it's just sort of like it's not like the gambling scene, let's say, when she's at the gambling house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of panning around, and I feel like anytime you're going to show like Americans gambling and you're going to just watch them play for that long, it's going to build suspense. It's there to be like some kind of weird slow burn. And that's not what's happening here at all. It's just like these long shots of them gambling, and it's just kind of interesting. I don't know if it's like because culturally I don't know the game and I'm trying to figure it out. Because there is a lot going on they show her watching things, but I never felt like it was building up to some point where it was going to boil over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wasn't boring. Like it's
because she was still the focus of it. It
right.
never switched to be the focus is on the gambling in this game.
But you know what I mean? Like in an American movie, you would feel like the tensions start to build up. You know,
it would be like intense.
It would be
shots
the way they're zooming in on people. And here you're just watching them gamble. You're watching the guy in a diaper with tattoos just start shouting things. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. But you're right. They always are focusing back on her, back on Bonzo, back on the other guys across the table. But it's not like a tension thing. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know if I'm probably not explaining it very well.
No,
it's not. It should be boring, but it's not. Just based on what we're used to. You know, it feels like there's no point to this thing, but there's totally a point. They're just getting you there.
Right. It's kind of like we're just an observer in the room passively.
Yeah.
as her, just kind of like
right.
seeing, just looking for him.
You're not invested in anything.
No.
You're just kind of watching. Yeah.
It's just there.
It's like people watching at a mall or an airport or something.
Yeah.
You just watch people and be like, this is going to go down. Okay.
Oh no, what's happening? But yeah.
The other camera stuff I wanted to talk about and piggyback on this point is when they would project something like on, there's a part where she's walking through like flowers and then they kind of focus in on the bottom half of her kimono and then they're projecting like a flashback of her as a little kid on the kimono. There's these weird like camera tricks that they're doing where it's kind of like, and that transitions into like her being, or the part in the prison where they just show like the wide shot of the prison and then the shadows down in the corner would sort of light up and it would be her mother like having sex with a guard. And then it would fade back into shadow and then the light would come up again and it would be, the same thing, but with a different, and it was just sort of like showing this passage of time in a interesting way where the wide shot stayed the same, but this passage of time was going on down in the corner and just these weird, like sort of shots within shots that they would do. I thought it was a great stylistic choice to make. And it really sort of made this visually interesting.
It's funny because I didn't realize that. Like, it didn't stand out to me. Like, I know what scenes you're talking about, but
I think that's what's cool about it, though, is that it's not like, hey, look at this. It's just like, this is just what we're doing.
Yeah, I thought it was cool transitions.
It's not show-offy at all.
No, and it's not as overt as, like, when the curtain falls. It's
right,
a more subtle overlapping, your focus is here. Now it's here.
Now it's over here. Now it's over here.
Yeah.
And the last visual thing I want to point out is the first guy she kills in the movie. Where it's in the snow and like the guy's in the rickshaw.
Yeah.
He's like the local gangster.
It's like her introduction scene.
Right. That is it's clearly like done on a soundstage. And you have like the street of the town and the snow falling, but there's no sky. There's nothing behind it. It's all just black. So it looks like a theater set. It looks like a stage. You know how like when you're on stage in a theater and the walls go up and then it stops and there's like nothing?
Yeah, you can just see
it looks
that.
like that, but it's sort of like a theater, or it's sort of composed the way like a graphic novel panel would be, like especially a manga, black and white manga, where there would just be nothing above the buildings.
I'm sure, yeah.
And it just looks so cool. And it just sort of like lets you know right off the bat, like, this is a completely stylized movie from the way it looks to the way that blood is going to shoot out of these bodies when she sticks them. And that is such a cool scene of her, flipping around. She's got the umbrella and the sword and just slicing people up. And I think it's a great way to bring her into this movie.
It is. It kind of tells you everything you're going to see.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
Yeah.
It is one of like 3 introductions that the film gives. But I think it's the best one.
Well, they bring in it's like the introduction of her mother, and then like flashback and flashback and a flashback in that. And then it's like the introduction of Lady Snowblood the baby, and now it's the introduction of Lady Snowblood the adult, and then we're going back, and it's Lady Snowblood, the little girl in the barrel that gets kicked down the hill 100,000 times. But it all works for me. I'm not. I agree. Those are redundant and can be a little bit tedious. But honestly, I think this movie is so cool. I have a hard time honestly criticizing this movie and making anything stick.
That is very fair. Like, I think, and that was kind of like in the very beginning, I was like, oh, we've kind of seen this baby thing before. Like, they flash back to it multiple times or whatnot. But by halfway through the movie, I didn't care. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm fully invested in this. It somehow all worked, even if it was a little jarring or
repetitive.
yeah, repetitive, I think, is the better word.
But I do. Again, I'm giving this movie a little bit of a pass. I mean, it's from a completely different time period. This movie's 50 years old almost. You say it came out 73, 74 in the States.
Yeah, so
and just a really different style of filmmaking than we were used to seeing then, and I think now. I still think this movie is pretty cutting edge when you hold it up. I mean, it looks like a 70s movie for sure, but I think this is a starkly different kind of action movie than we're used to seeing, than what is being made right now.
It stands out as unique
for
to the time and in general.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of just the definition of a classic.
I mean,
just something wholly unique that influences other media and
that
stands out,
holds up over time. Like this movie clearly looks like it was made in the 70s.
The production, you can tell when they're holding like things to squirt the blood or whatnot, but it's all. You can overlook it.
You watch this movie in context, like you should watch all movies in context. Oh, it was, King Kong was made in 1933. Of course that gorilla looks fake. But let me buy into the world of 1933 and the limitations of this movie. And this is the same thing. I think this movie holds up really, really well. I think it helps that
douchebags on YouTube who got popular by being douchebags on YouTube.
Oh my God! Look at Lady Snowblood talking on a rotary dial telephone.
The disco scene where she pulls a sword out of her afro.
It's not like watching a 70s exploitation movie in the States
because girls usually won't look at me without money in my hand, so I pay for it. You don't have this kind of money, I have this kind of money. So it's just bragging about your money to the children that watch you, which is kind of just in the hand that feeds you,
which is also
but kids like it. 3.
But I think this movie is kind of timeless in its own way. I think this
4,
movie
you're still a
carries
big
forward
fucking
really
douchebag.
well.
5, always threatening to fight your
I think
haters
more and more
or
people
roasting
are
them.
finding it
Optionally diss tracks if you want to be an extreme turbo super douchebag YouTuber. Douchebag YouTubers are something I've talked about in the past. They're probably the biggest content creators on the site. Because kids live vicariously through that kind of content. They see this man
whether you like
successful
Kill Bill or
because
not,
they watch them. So they feel like they had a part in that person's success. And when they get flexed on, they feel like they've earned that. Like when they're getting flexed on, it's like, hey, I gave you that. Yeah, use it wisely.
The fact that it is
like that kind of shit because they might not have it. And it feels good that they were able to help someone else achieve it. I understand it. It makes sense. That doesn't mean I respect it, though. It's a very toxic thing.
I almost feel like
the reason I'm making this is because I found the perfect example of a douche tuber today. Memulous made a video on a man named Ryan Franklin who is the epitome of a douche tuber. He does it all.
Right.
I want to take a hard look at his channel here to show you
Man,
exactly what douche
this
tubers
movie really
are
ripped
and
off
why they're
Quentin
bad.
Tarantino, huh? 20 years before. But no, I'm just saying, like, it's hard if you've seen Kill Bill.
I'm only going to show one Ryan Franklin clip per point to
and it is a
illustrate
great
it because I don't want to show more than necessary because I understand not everyone has a war-hardened stomach like I do that can hold on to vomit when they see abysmal fucking content like this. So I'm only going to show as much as necessary to get the points across.
There's no way
you
you can
are not
watch
tortured
Lady
with more
Snowblood
Ryan Franklin content than you need to be.
Because
Nearly everything that Ryan does,
you just
there's
see the
something
DNA, and I think that's cool
video
too.
It'll be, oh, look
it's kind of
at
like when you
hat I just
are
bought,
into a band,
oh, hey Dad, I just spent
and then you read an interview
on
and
this
you're
Louis
like, who are
Vuitton
your
trench coat.
influences? And you go,
On Instagram,
there's a
they'll
ton of
post,
bands
just bought
that
this
I was
extremely
into
expensive
that were
pair
like
of shoes,
70s
these
bands
Yeezys.
when I was in
Oh,
high
check
school.
out this
And
Gucci
a lot of them
condom
were,
on my micro penis. Hashtag
we love Cream.
He is always
who's
flexing.
Cream? And I went and
flexing
found
is one of the main things with douche tubers. I really personally don't understand why people will just stand for that.
And
that's just so insulting. It's spitting in your face. Hey, you supported me. Now I'm going to brag to you that you don't have these things. So fuck you. I don't get that, and I think that's just a really bad thing to do. Unhealthy more than anything. It shows nothing but insecurity or a sense of holier than thou,
you go, the mountain
which
goats
all
are great.
douche-tubers have. They always think they're more important than all of their viewers, and they always have this belief that the world owes them everything and they're entitled to everything the world has to offer.
I never did want to see Kill Bill. I just never went out to see it.
It's honestly, I don't watch Kill Bill a lot because it's like 4 to 5 5 hours. Like you have to block out.
Well, yeah, and I would want to do that. I would want to watch, because I know it was released like that, Volume 1 and 2.
It was released separately, like 6 months apart.
I'm in firm agreement with Ryan on this point here. If
They
you are a fan of Ryan
packaged
Franklin, you are
together a
dumb,
lot.
and you are stupid.
But
as you can see, this illustrates my point.
I just
honestly
made
where
like
he
Kill
thinks
Bill
he's
quite a
better
bit,
than all of
because
his
it
viewers.
is-
He thinks they're all very
it is a
dumb
lot
for
of
even
this,
falling for his clickbait. And
clearly
most
by its
douche
influence,
tubers feel
but
the
it also
same
is
way. Hey,
kind of-
my
it's-
audience
it's
is so
the
dumb I
influence
can
of a lot
clickbait
of
the shit
things,
out of anything, even
and
if
it
it makes
also
no
just
sense.
kind of has its own
Aliens
language,
invaded
I
my
find.
boners at 3
And it is
a.m.
a
while
really
watching
interesting revenge
SpongeBob.
book.
Haunted, super scary.
I
You won't
think
believe
I think
number
you would
6.
understand.
10 million views.
But
So
this
yeah,
movie,
I agree
do you
that
give
viewers
it
of these
a
kind of
big
people,
recommendation?
I wouldn't necessarily
As
call
I
them
do?
stupid, but they're naive because they're
Cool.
children. They're being exploited with this misleading shit,
funnily enough,
which
I've been
is fucking awful in my
recording,
opinion.
I have a little chart, like an Excel chart.
Nerd.
I know.
Nerd.
One of the main things
Of
he does
all
is
of the
always
movies
insult
I've seen
any
this
of his
year,
haters
and
based on their
this
appearance.
one
He always
is the
goes right
first
for
10 out of
appearance
10.
insults, and he does not discriminate.
cool.
It doesn't matter your
And
age,
there are
sex,
a lot
race.
of
You can be
9 out of
fucking
10s.
alien. You're
This
still a
is the
target.
first
Everyone
10
is
out of
equal
10.
in his
I
eyes.
think it
Here he is
deserves
taking
it.
on a
We should start a
6-year-old.
letterbox.
He showed no mercy. The full wrath of his clever roasting
That
was
would
laid
be
down
like
upon the
I have
6-year-old.
thought
He was
about doing it
merciless.
before, just for myself. But we could make an account.
The arguments that
For
we
the
had
for the
over-
the show, just to put our own like reviews, and then we could each put things we see individually in there as well. Maybe we should do that.
I wonder why
Not
you did
to-
so many hair jokes.
You can
I
keep your
honestly can't
spreadsheet
imagine.
going too.
I'm gonna go ahead and pile
I
on it
will.
though.
I mean-
You look
No.
like Bert from Sesame Street.
That would be
I'm sure you
fun.
get that one all the time. So that's
but
nothing
yeah,
to do.
just
Your
as a
hair
way
looks
to-
like Anthony Sullivan's smart
another way to
mop after
bring
it was used to clean up a
people into the
pile of
conversation.
Chaz Finster's pubic hair. I'm actually
But,
really glad you chose that
yeah,
hairstyle.
Lady Snowblood
honestly.
is
It lets
on
people
HBO
know you're a
Max. It's
douchebag
under
without
the,
ever having to talk to you. Your hair looks like 3
Criterion banner,
rusted
I think,
Slinkies
or
that had an
TCM.
orgy on top of your
One of
head
the
and you
two.
just decided not to stop.
It
you're welcome.
it has
There's
a
4 more for your
Criterion
Bahamas
release,
fund.
so if you want to go buy the Criterion Blu-ray, you can do that, which is cool, and I'm maybe doing it.
I think it's always good
Oh
to
no,
do
look
that
out,
with something
we've been
you're
invaded by
interested in.
Ryan
Sure,
Franklin.
to have a
Just
hard
kidding,
copy
that's not
that
Ryan
you
Franklin. That's Watto
really
from the
do
Star
own,
Wars prequels.
you know, like,
Ryan is
you
way
can't
too
just
much
take
of a
this
pussy
off
to
the
confront
service.
someone directly. He's
But,
already private his Twitter account and shit.
But no,
he's a big old pussy.
this is a
Wait, you see what I did there, Ryan?
wholly
I
unique
compared
movie,
you
and
to
I
Watto,
really
and
recommend
Watto is known
if you
for
have
not
HBO
being
Max
super great looking in
and
the
an
Phantom
hour and a
Menace.
half
So I'm
to
calling
kill,
you
and
ugly.
you
You
want
get
to see
it?
something
You know,
really
because that's what you
unique and
do.
interesting.
Man, you really took
Sit
that
down and
6-year-old
watch
down
Lady
to
Snowblood.
size,
I'm
man.
gonna be
What are you, like
watching
19 or
the
20 and
sequel.
you're just calling a fucking child ugly? Are you
Yeah.
out of your fucking mind, man? Holy shit.
Spring break
Yeah.
Japanese movie session.
Let's do it, man. But yeah, check it out. Lady Snowblood's great.
What a
I'm glad
cool
it-
guy.
I'm
You
glad
couldn't even be
I
bothered to read who the fan
dropped
mail
it
was
on the table
from.
here, and we
He's
can-
had it for
we
2
can take it
fucking
apart.
years and hasn't
That was
opened
a
it. What a
good
piece
pick.
of shit.
I was really
I
worried
honestly
about
don't think
whether
that fan
I
mail is
would
actually from somebody.
be
I
able
feel like
to
he just
talk
wrote
about
that
it,
himself
but,
as Jessica.
I feel
I
like
don't
there's so
think
much
this
going
guy's getting
on.
fan mail or ever has in
and
the past.
it's such a different movie. I'm like, I don't know if I have the words to. I didn't take very many notes.
I run into that all
I'm
the time.
just like, I don't know
Oh
if
yeah, that's
I.
what we want you to
if
do,
I can
Ryan.
even
Open up another
really get my
PO
head
box so they
around,
can send you letters that you'll never fucking read for 2 years.
this weird
Great
movie
idea, you
enough
stupid
to
son of a bitch. Amazing.
talk about
Hey
it.
guys, you want me to open another PO
Yeah.
box so you can send
but,
shit that I
I
ignore?
think we
How's
were
that sound?
coherent.
Great.
I
don't know if our
Again,
audience-
improving his
Yeah,
fucking
let us
shit
know
on his
if I just
fans or
sounded like I
anyone
was
for
talking
that
in
matter.
circles the whole time.
Unbelievable.
Let's move on to shout
How the
outs.
fuck
What do you
do you
got?
have an
What do you got this
accidental
week?
flex? Oh, whoopsie.
I'm
I accidentally
shouting
just
out
started taking
a
pictures of all of my
woodworker on
expensive
TikTok
possessions and
who
saying
goes
how
by
great they were and then accidentally
the
uploading them all
JD
over
is
everything that I
Jessica.
own. Damn, what a silly
and
mistake. I
I
mean, there's no
found
correcting it now. It's already out in the wild. Shit, I'm sorry, guys.
wood carvings where he makes a map of the United States out of wood from each state tree, and so he does a separate video for each state, and he explains the history of this tree, kind of the remedies, like,
This is always the
oh, you
fleshlight
follow
these
the sap
douchebags start to
leaves
use
and
once it
this,
starts
and
backfiring
how
with
did
all
they
of their
pick their
douchebaggery and
state
bragging.
tree?
Oh, it's just a
all
joke. I'm
sorts
just
of
playing a
really
persona.
interesting stuff, and then
I'm not
Is this the
really
same
a
guy
huge
that
insufferable
you love
asshole.
trees?
It's just
No.
a
Is
joke.
that a different guy?
Lighten
That's a
up,
different guy.
That
guys.
guy's awesome though.
But
Too.
it's very
He is
clear it's
awesome.
not a
There's a
joke
lot of
because
tree
none of it's done
content
in
There's a lot of
any
nature
way,
content on TikTok at all. It's just being an overall. I've found a lot of hikers and a lot of like.
If you have to
specific botany kind of stuff
time
on
and
there.
time again. Maybe it's not a good joke, or maybe
our
you're the joke.
personal interest
It's just fucking
being
silly because
reflected.
it's very
But
obvious to anyone that you're not kidding.
So I thought
you're just being a douchebag. Now, this was a National Geographic look at the douche tuber, and I hope you've all learned something about this abhorrent species. I really have no respect for these kind of people at all, and hopefully you're walking away with this
just seeing if we'll
knowledge
be
and also
underwater.
forming an opinion that, hey,
If we have to change
You won't even have to do
our
it.
state tree to be
either
underwater.
my kids or my brothers and sisters that are young watch.
I am going to shout out something for
really
the guitar nerds this
100%.
week.
That's it.
This is a YouTube channel. It's called 5 Watt World, and a lot of what I like to watch on here are short history videos. He does the short history of the Les Paul, the short history of the Telecaster. He takes these big kind of iconic guitars, and he breaks down this is where it started.
Alright, I went down the dark and depressing rabbit hole of weird family vlog YouTube channels. Not that that's its own category, because every family vlog channel on YouTube I think is weird. And I just want to talk about it today. It's been bothering me for the last couple days, and I'm just going to pop this in here for a little relief just to talk about it.
I think
family vlog channels is super creepy. I think it really hurts your whole family, especially because all of these family vlog channels focus on their kids mainly. So I genuinely can't wrap my head around growing up with a camera in my face every single day throughout my entire developing years. It has to be horrible. It just feels so fake, so forced, and it feels like there's nothing private in these kids' lives anymore. It's just completely open for strangers to watch them grow up. And it's even like these strangers are helping to raise your kids. It's like this awful parasocial relationship with creepy people on YouTube in the comments watching and judging your parenting and your kids. It's fucking terrifying. Like, I remember one time when I was 8 years old, I got naked and put my wiener on a pile of dirty laundry and then pissed all over it. If I did that today,
you don't have to go
well, not today, as like a 27-year-old man, I just go to jail. But if I did that today, like if I was 8 years old and I did that, that'd probably be like a fucking million-view family vlog video right there. That'd just be like the thumbnail, like, my son did what to our laundry? Like, everything for these families gets filmed and posted on YouTube because it makes them money and somehow has an audience. I think it's just super fucking creepy. These parents are just using their kids as props in their videos in order to make money off of it. It feels like fucking child labor to a certain extent. They're like the main draw, they're the main actors, and yet they don't benefit from it at all. They don't see a dime of that shit. Like, yeah, maybe they get some cool toys or whatever, but it's not like they are actually able to consent to being like the main character in your horrible YouTube production. They're just kids. Like, take for example Ryan Toy Reviews. That kid is worth over $30 million. One of the most popular and most profitable channels on all of YouTube. That kid has not seen a dime of that, I bet. It all goes to his parents, who are absolutely living it up with that money. Ryan's been like 6 years old for the last 10 years. Like fucking Ash Ketchum. The kid has to be approaching like 14 by this point, but he is still doing the same thing, and his parents are still the main beneficiary from his work. Now, of course, I'm sure there's some level of fun where he just gets to play with toys. It makes his parents happy. He gets more toys, and it's just this cycle. Like, yeah, I'm sure it's not the most evil situation in the world, but it's still extremely weird. All of these family vlog channels strike me as just a bunch of narcissists who found a way to make money using their kids and using the least amount of effort possible, just by shoving a camera in their family's face at all hours of the day. Like, there's a popular meme that went around last year where it was this picture here, Zam, she's only 12, so spicy. This comes from a family vlog channel with over 8.7 million subs. Now, the girl in their thumbnail wasn't actually 12, but I still censored it just in case. You can see that some of these families with these channels are fucking weird. Clickbaiting child porn for your audience is not okay. Like, who the fuck does the Prince family think is watching them? Jared Fogle? Like, are they trying to appeal to, like, pedophiles or something? Like, what the fuck was the point in taking a woman in her bra and panties, calling her 12, and then saying she's spicy on your thumbnail? It's fucking weird. And I want to make it clear, I don't think every family with a vlog channel is a dysfunctional group of goofballs that, you know, hurt their kids or make their kids' lives miserable. I'm not saying that. I'm sure there are some genuinely wholesome families out there where the whole family just enjoys getting together like once a week, once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, and doing like a family video together. I'm sure that exists. I have no doubt about it. I'm focusing more on the family vlog channels that are like daily or every couple of day posters that are literally all hours shoving cameras in their kid's face.
The movie
it's
or the
not
show,
healthy, and these families are not doing a great job of raising their kids. I'm not like some kind of fucking child psychology expert or anything, but I think I can say with confidence, no one growing up wants to be constantly monitored by complete strangers.
Alright, what's your social
Sounds like a nightmare. And God forbid you actually have like a serious problem, because then the whole world's gonna know about it. A lot of these family channels,
you talk about old Doctor Who episodes?
their family's going through something rough.
I do.
Like one of the kids breaks their arm, or one of the kids gets in trouble at school or something, and the videos of them being disciplined, or them at the hospital, or crying. Those get the most views, which is why you see so many thumbnails with the kids in pain, or crying, or something like traumatic going on. Like, you remember Daddy 05? That was an extremely big controversy. That was a genuine abusive family that was actually hurting their kids for views on YouTube. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I'm sure most of you remember.
Austin,
that's not exactly uncommon on the platform, I imagine. These videos where the kids are in distress, like just really upset about something or even injured, are really popular on these channels. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, and this is just a full-blown, like...